He didn't come to this forest to start over, just to stop running. The cabin he inherited was old, quiet, and filled with things no one wanted. In the corner stood a strange wooden cabinet, scratched, heavy, and completely out of place. People in town laughed at it, called it nothing more than firewood waiting to burn. Even when he had nothing left, he still refused to get rid of it, but his dog wouldn't leave it alone, standing in front of it like it was guarding something unseen. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful stories. The forest did not greet him. It simply existed. Quiet, patient, indifferent. Sunlight slipped through the tall northern pines in long, pale beams, catching on drifting dust and melting frost. The air carried the scent of cold earth and resin, clean in a way that made a man aware of every breath he took. Somewhere deeper in the woods, a crow called once and fell silent again. Thane Wilder stood at the edge of the clearing, boots planted in thin snow, shoulders squared as if the forest itself were something that might push back. 43 years old, 6'1", broad-shouldered, built like a man who had carried too much weight for too long. His olive field jacket hung naturally on him, worn into the shape of his life. Beneath it, a red and dark blue plaid shirt, cargo pants darkened with use, brown leather boots scuffed at the toes. A military watch scratched but still precise, a knife in his pocket, a pack slung over one shoulder. Everything about him said one thing. He had learned to survive. His face was carved in hard lines, angular jaw, rough stubble shadowing his cheeks, eyes a deep blue gray that never quite rested. There was something in them that didn't belong to this forest, something that had crossed oceans and never quite made it back. Behind him, a German shepherd stepped forward. Ash, 5, maybe 6 years old. Black and tan coat, short and dense, muscles coiled beneath fur that caught the sunlight like burnished metal. The dog moved without wasted motion, each step deliberate, ears upright, eyes alert, watching everything, always watching. The harness on his back bore a simple patch, K9ASH. He didn't bark. He rarely did. Instead, he stood close enough that his presence could be felt more than seen, like a second heartbeat beside Thane's own. Thane exhaled slowly, his breath fogging the cold air. "Well," he muttered under his breath, voice rough from disuse. "This is it." The cabin stood ahead. It leaned slightly to one side, as if tired of holding itself upright. The roof sagged just enough to suggest another heavy winter might be too much. One window was cracked. The porch boards creaked even under the weight of the wind. Not a place to begin again. Just a place where no one would ask questions. Thane stepped forward. Ash followed. Inside, the cabin smelled of old wood and forgotten time. Dust layered every surface, a narrow bed against the wall, a small stove in the corner, a table that had seen more years than Thane cared to count. Everything was functional, barely, except one thing. Across the far wall stood the object that didn't belong. A map cabinet. It was made of cedar, heavy and dark, its surface carved with faint patterns worn smooth by decades. Dozens of shallow drawers stacked in neat rows, each with a small brass handle dulled by age. Scratches ran across the top like old scars. It wasn't beautiful, but it was deliberate. Ash moved toward it immediately. No hesitation. He lowered his head, nose hovering just above the wood, inhaling slowly. His ears tilted forward, body still, as if listening to something beyond sound. Thane watched him. "You've got to be kidding me," he said quietly. Ash didn't respond. He rarely did. Instead, he shifted slightly, stepping closer, positioning himself beside the cabinet, not touching it, not guarding it exactly, but not leaving it either. Thane rubbed the back of his neck. The tension there never really went away. He walked further into the room, boots creaking softly against the wood. His gaze drifted over the cabinet again. "Thing's probably older than the trees," he muttered. He had seen it before. Not here. Back in a house that no longer existed. Back when he was younger, before the war, before everything else had carved him into something quieter. His grandfather had owned it. That much, he remembered. And that was enough reason, barely, to drag it across states and drop it into this dying cabin. Outside, a truck engine broke the silence. Thane stiffened slightly. Ash's head lifted instantly. The dog turned toward the door, body tightening. Not aggressive, not yet. Just aware, always aware. A moment later, footsteps approached the porch. Heavy, confident, unhurried. The door creaked open before Thane could reach it. Victor Kane stepped inside like he already owned the place. He was tall, well-built in a different way than Thane, less hardened, more refined. His posture was perfect, shoulders relaxed but controlled. His charcoal coat fit him precisely, clean lines against the rough edges of the cabin. Beneath it, a black turtleneck, tailored trousers, polished boots untouched by the dirt outside. His hair was dark, neatly styled, not a strand out of place. His face was sharp, composed. The kind of face that smiled without warmth. His eyes moved quickly, calculating everything in the room in seconds. They stopped at the cabinet. Of course they did. "Well," Victor said, voice smooth, almost amused. "You actually kept it." Thane didn't answer. Victor stepped further inside, brushing invisible dust from his coat sleeve as if the room itself offended him. "I'll be honest," he continued, glancing around. "I thought you'd burn it for heat before winter even started." Ash shifted. Just a step. But it was enough. Victor's eyes flicked toward the dog. There was a pause. Not fear. Recognition. "Still got the dog, I see," Victor said. Thane placed a hand lightly against Ash's neck. "He stays," he said. Victor smiled faintly. "I'm sure he does." His attention returned to the cabinet. He walked toward it slowly, stopping just short, as if aware of the invisible line Ash had drawn. He didn't cross it. Instead, he nodded toward it. "I'll save us both some time," Victor said. $3,000. Silence. The number hung in the air like something heavier than it should have been. 3,000. Enough to cover the rent, enough to breathe. Thane's jaw tightened slightly. "Not for sale," he said. Victor chuckled softly. "Everything's for sale." Ash's ears twitched. The wind outside picked up, pressing faintly against the cabin walls. Victor tilted his head. "Look around, Thane," he said, voice dropping just enough to carry weight. "You've got, what, 3 days before whoever owns this land decides they'd rather lock the door than wait for you to pay?" Thane said nothing. Victor stepped closer, not to the cabinet, but to Thane, close enough to make the point. 3,000, he repeated, for a piece of wood that doesn't even know what century it's in. Ash moved, not forward, not aggressive, just one step, sideways, placing himself directly between Victor and the cabinet. Still silent, still. But his body had changed. His weight shifted slightly onto his front legs, his head lowered just enough, his eyes locked. Not on Victor's face, but on his hands, watching, waiting, the same way he used to. Before something went wrong, before the ground disappeared, before the explosion. Thane felt it before he understood it. That feeling, that exact feeling. A memory crawled up his spine. Dust, heat, a road in a place far from here. Ash freezing in place, refusing to move, refusing to obey. And seconds later, Thane blinked. The cabin snapped back into place around him. Cold, quiet, real. Victor was still talking. "Just wood, Thane." Thane looked at Ash. Really looked. The dog wasn't guessing. He wasn't curious. He had made a decision. Thane exhaled slowly. Victor noticed the shift. His smile faded just a fraction. "Interesting," he said. Thane straightened slightly. "Not for sale," he repeated. Victor studied him, longer this time. Then he stepped back. Not defeated, just recalculating. "All right," he said lightly. "We'll call that your opening position." He turned toward the door, adjusting his coat. "But you should think about it," he added. "Winter's not kind to stubborn men." He paused at the threshold, glancing once more at the cabinet, then at Ash, then back at Thane. "I'll be back." The door closed behind him. The truck engine started again, faded, gone. Silence returned. The forest breathed. Thane stood still for a long moment. Then he walked toward the cabinet. Ash didn't move away. He simply shifted enough to allow Thane beside him. Close. Thane placed a hand against the wood. It was cold, solid, unremarkable. And yet, he frowned slightly. Something about it felt heavier. Not physically, just present. He shook his head. "You see something I don't?" he asked quietly. Ash didn't answer. He never did. Instead, he sat down beside the cabinet and stayed there, like a guard, like a promise. Outside, the light began to fade. Inside, the old cabinet stood exactly where it had always stood, unchanged, unimportant, worthless. At least, that's what everyone believed. Thane leaned back slightly, exhaling. 3 days. That was all he had. He looked at the cabinet again, then at Ash. The dog didn't look back. His eyes were still on the wood, watching. Waiting. As if somewhere inside that forgotten thing, something was about to be remembered. There are things in this world. Thane murmured under his breath, not sure where the words came from, that only change your life if you don't walk away from them. He didn't know why he said it, but Ash's tail moved once, soft, certain. Morning came quietly, the way it always did in the northern forest. Slow light sliding through the tall pines, frost dissolving into damp earth, the world waking without asking permission. Rowan Hale was already awake. He stood outside the cabin, sleeves rolled halfway up his forearms, despite the cold, splitting wood with measured, efficient strikes. Each movement was controlled. No wasted energy, no hesitation. The axe rose, fell, split, again. It was the kind of rhythm that didn't require thought, only presence. And for a man like Rowan, presence was sometimes the only way to keep the past from bleeding into the present. Behind him, the cabin door creaked open. Ash stepped out. The German shepherd paused just beyond the threshold, nose lifting slightly to taste the air. The dog's coat caught the early sunlight. Black along the back, warm gold along the chest and legs, muscles shifting beneath the surface like quiet machinery. 5, maybe 6 years old, still in his prime, still carrying the discipline of a soldier. Ash watched Rowan for a moment, then turned. Not toward the trees, not toward the open field. Back inside. Rowan noticed. His axe paused midair. "Yeah," he muttered, lowering it slowly. "You've been doing that." Ash didn't look back. He disappeared into the cabin without a sound. Rowan stood there for a second longer, then drove the axe into the chopping block and followed. Inside, the air held a faint warmth from the stove, though the cold still lingered in the corners. The map cabinet stood where it had always been, unchanged. Except Ash was already there. The dog stood close to it, head lowered, nose hovering just above one specific drawer, third row from the top, slightly left of center. He wasn't sniffing randomly. He was tracing, slow, deliberate passes along the wood grain, pausing, returning, as if something invisible was etched into the cabinet, something only he could read. Rowan leaned against the door frame, arms folded. "You planning on opening it yourself?" he asked. No response. Ash shifted slightly, then stopped again at the exact same spot. The same place as yesterday, and the day before. Rowan exhaled quietly. "All right," he said under his breath. He stepped forward. The drawer slid open easily. Inside, nothing unusual. Old paper fragments, a cracked compass, a folded piece of cloth that had long since lost its original color. Rowan picked up the compass, turned it in his fingers. Dead. The needle didn't move. "Looks like everything else in here," he muttered. Ash leaned closer, sniffed once, then stopped. His body went still. Rowan noticed that. He always did. That stillness wasn't curiosity. It was recognition. Rowan set the compass aside and ran his knuckles lightly against the base of the drawer. Knock. Solid. He shifted slightly. Knock. Still solid. Then, a softer sound. Faint. Different. Rowan frowned. "Huh." He tapped again, slower this time, moving across the wooden surface. Most of it gave the same dull response. Except one corner. Back left. Hollow. Rowan's eyes narrowed slightly. Ash stepped back half a pace, giving him space, but not looking away. Not for a second. A truck approached sometime later that morning. Rowan was back outside, repairing a loose hinge on the side of the cabin, when the engine sound broke through the quiet. Ash lifted his head instantly. The dog didn't bark, just watched. A Green Ranger vehicle rolled into the clearing, tires crunching softly over frost. The door opened. A woman stepped out. Mara Bellamy. Mid-30s, lean, practical build. The kind of strength that came from years outdoors rather than any gym. Her moss green Ranger parka was worn but well kept, layered over a gray sweater. Dark outdoor pants. Brown waterproof boots. Her hair, chestnut brown, was pulled back loosely at the nape of her neck, strands escaping in the wind. Her face carried a natural sharpness, not harsh, but observant. The kind of person who noticed things others overlooked. Her eyes moved first to Rowan, then to Ash, then, briefly, to the cabin. Assessing. Always assessing. "Rowan Hale?" she called. Rowan straightened slightly. "That depends," he replied. "You here to help or to find me?" Mara's lips curved just slightly. "Depends on what I find." She walked closer, boots steady, confident, not aggressive, not cautious either, just certain. Ash watched her, not tense, but not relaxed. Rowan noticed that too. "He won't bite," Rowan said. Mara crouched slightly, not reaching out, not invading space. "I figured," she said. "Dogs like that don't waste energy on the wrong targets." Ash tilted his head just slightly. Then, after a brief pause, he looked away. That was his version of approval. Rowan huffed a quiet breath. "Lucky you," he said. Mara stood again, brushing her hands lightly against her jacket. "I'm here about the old fire lookout," she said, nodding toward the distant ridge. "Heard you were planning to fix it." Planning to? Rowan replied. Haven't decided if it's worth the effort. Mara studied him for a second, then glanced past him, into the cabin. Her gaze stopped. On the cabinet. She didn't move right away, just looked. Then she stepped past Rowan without asking. Inside. Rowan followed. Ash was already there again. Of course he was. Mara approached the cabinet slowly. Her fingers hovered just above the wood, not touching yet. That's not something you see every day, she murmured. Rowan leaned against the wall. Yeah, well, apparently it's worth about $3,000 to the right person. Mara glanced at him. Someone offered you money for this? Rowan nodded once. She looked back at the cabinet. This time she touched it. Lightly. Her fingers traced the edges, the worn carvings, the subtle grooves in the frame. Cedar, she said quietly. Old growth, by the look of it. Rowan shrugged. Means nothing to me. Mara shook her head slightly. No, she said. It means whoever made this knew exactly what they were doing. She crouched, eye level with the drawers. These aren't storage drawers, she added. Not really. Rowan frowned. What do you mean? Mara tapped one lightly. They're too precise, too shallow, too reinforced. She looked up at him. Survey cabinets, she said. Used by early forest mapping teams. Late 1800s, early 1900s. Rowan said nothing. Mara continued. They didn't just hold maps, she said. They held records, coordinates, notes that weren't meant to be obvious. Her gaze lingered on the cabinet, then shifted to Ash. The dog hadn't moved, still watching, still fixed on that same drawer. Mara noticed. Your dog's been doing that long? She asked. Rowan hesitated. Couple days. Mara nodded slowly. Then I'd say he's not wrong. Ash suddenly lifted his head. Not sharply, not alarmed, just focused. His nose moved slightly along the edge of the drawer. Then he pressed it firmly against one exact point and held it there. Not sniffing, not searching, holding, as if confirming something. Rowan felt a quiet shift in his chest. Not fear, not yet, but something close. The kind of feeling that comes right before a memory you didn't invite starts to surface. Ash pulled back, looked at Rowan. Not like a dog waiting for a command, like a partner waiting for a decision. Mara stood slowly. If I were you, she said, brushing dust from her knees, I'd take a closer look. Rowan glanced at her. You always trust a dog over common sense? Mara met his gaze. Out here? She said. Yes. That night, the forest felt different. Still quiet, still cold, but heavier. Rowan sat at the small table, the cabinet visible in the corner of his vision. The fire crackled softly in the stove, casting shifting shadows across the walls. Ash lay near the cabinet, but not sleeping, watching, always watching. Rowan rubbed his face slowly, exhaustion pressing in behind his eyes. All right, he muttered. He stood, walked over, opened the drawer again. This time he didn't look at what was inside. He emptied it. Everything. Set it aside. Ash stood immediately, close, but not interfering. Rowan ran his hand along the base of the drawer, felt the wood, smooth, worn, except there, a ridge. So faint it almost wasn't there. Rowan pressed it. Nothing. He pressed again, harder. Still nothing. Ash shifted slightly, one step closer. Rowan exhaled. Yeah, he said quietly. I hear you. He adjusted his angle, pressed again. This time, a soft click, barely audible, but enough. The panel shifted, just slightly. Rowan froze. Ash didn't move, didn't breathe. Rowan slid his fingers beneath the edge, lifted. The base rose smoothly, revealing darkness, a hidden space beneath the drawer. Inside, a small brass key, cold, heavy. Beside it, a folded scrap of paper, and a single line, written in careful, steady handwriting. If you found this, you chose to stay. Rowan stared at it. For a long time. Ash sat beside him, quiet, certain. The fire cracked behind them. Outside, the forest held its breath. And for the first time since stepping into that cabin, Rowan Hale felt something shift. Not in the room, not in the world, inside himself. The road up the ridge wasn't really a road. It was a memory of one. A narrow trail cut through frozen earth and roots, winding upward between tall pines that seemed to grow closer together the higher they climbed. Snow lingered in patches where sunlight couldn't reach, thin and brittle, crunching under Rowan Hale's boots with each step. Ash moved ahead. Not far. Never far. The German shepherd navigated the incline with quiet confidence, muscles flowing beneath his coat, paws finding stable ground where human eyes might hesitate. His ears stayed forward, tracking the forest like a living radar, catching shifts in wind, the distant crack of a branch, the absence of birdsong. That absence mattered, Rowan noticed. He always did. Too quiet, he muttered under his breath. His breath came slower now, not from fatigue but from awareness. Every step up the ridge pulled him further away from the world below, into something older, something that had been waiting long before he arrived. Behind him, Mara Bellamy followed. She kept pace well. Not fast, not slow, steady. Her boots moved with practiced familiarity across uneven terrain. She had traded the ranger vehicle for the trail without hesitation, her parka zipped high against the cold, her breath forming soft clouds in the air. "You sure about this?" she asked, not because she doubted him, but because she respected the question. Rowan didn't turn. "Not even a little," he said. Mara nodded once. "Good," she replied. "That's usually when it matters." The fire watchtower revealed itself slowly. At first it was only a shadow between the trees, then a line, then a shape. Wood, tall, leaning just enough to suggest it had outlived the people who built it. The structure rose from the ridge like a skeleton. Weathered beams, narrow stairs wrapping around the frame, and a small glass room at the top where watchers once scanned miles of forest for smoke. Now, the glass was cracked, some panes missing entirely. The wind moved through it like a voice that didn't need words. Ash stopped, not at the base, a few feet away. His posture shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Rowan slowed. "What is it?" Mara asked quietly. Rowan didn't answer. He was watching Ash. The dog's nose lifted slightly, catching scent carried down from above. His body angled, not toward the stairs but toward the structure itself, as if reading something written into the wood. Then Ash moved. Not up the stairs, around, circling the base slowly. Rowan followed. Mara stayed close. The ground near the tower was disturbed. At first glance, it looked like nothing, just uneven snow, broken patches of dirt. But Rowan crouched anyway. His fingers brushed lightly across the surface. Not snow, not natural. Compressed, repeated. Boot prints, fresh, not hours, not even a full day. Rowan's jaw tightened. Mara stepped closer, crouching beside him. "You see it?" she asked. Rowan nodded once. Someone's been here. Mara's eyes scanned the area. How many? Rowan studied the impressions. 2, he said. Maybe 3. Different weights. Mara exhaled slowly. Hunters? Rowan shook his head. No. He stood, his eyes lifted toward the tower. They didn't come for animals. Ash let out a low, quiet sound. Not quite a growl. More like a warning he wasn't ready to fully give. The wind picked up, brushing through the trees in a long, hollow sweep. Rowan looked at Mara. We go up anyway, he said. Mara met his gaze. No hesitation. Of course we do. The stairs creaked beneath their weight. Every step up felt like stepping into a place that didn't belong to the present anymore. The wood groaned, old nails shifting slightly in their holds, the structure resisting just enough to remind them it was still standing. But not for them. Ash climbed ahead now, careful, measured. Each paw placed with intent. Halfway up he stopped, turned, looked at Rowan, then continued. Rowan didn't need words. He understood. The door at the top hung slightly open. That alone was wrong. Mara reached it first, her hand hovering near the frame. The report said this place was sealed years ago, she said quietly. Rowan stepped beside her. It was. The wood around the latch was splintered. Not broken by time. Broken recently. Forced. Rowan pushed the door open slowly. The room inside was colder than the outside air. Not because of temperature, because something had disturbed it. Dust covered everything. Except, not everything. Ash stepped inside first. His paws made almost no sound. He moved in a slow arc, nose working steadily. Rowan's eyes followed the floor. There. Boot prints again. Clearer this time. They led to the center of the room, then stopped. Mara moved toward the old observation desk, a heavy wooden table positioned near the windows. Look at this, she said. Rowan joined her. The surface was scratched. Not old scratches. Fresh. Someone had searched here. Not casually. Desperately. Drawers had been opened, closed, opened again, but nothing remained. Whatever had been here, it was gone. Ash froze. Completely. His body went rigid, not in fear, not in aggression, but in absolute certainty. His head turned slowly toward the far corner of the room. Not where the desk stood, not where the prints ended. Somewhere else. Somewhere no one had looked. Rowan felt it before he understood it. That quiet pull. The same one that had stopped him from walking away days ago. Ash moved. 3 steps. Stopped at a vertical support beam. Old wood. Cracked. Unremarkable. Except he placed his nose against it and didn't move. Rowan approached slowly. What is it? Mara whispered. Rowan didn't answer. His hand reached into his pocket. The brass key, cold, solid. He hadn't been sure it belonged here, until now. He studied the beam. At first nothing, then a small indentation, barely visible, hidden along the grain where 2 planks met. Rowan pressed his thumb against it. Nothing. He adjusted, pressed again. Still nothing. Ash shifted slightly. Closer. Watching. Waiting. Rowan exhaled. All right, he murmured. He slid the key into the seam. It didn't look like it would fit. But it did. Perfectly. He turned it. A soft click echoed through the room. The beam shifted. Just enough. A hidden compartment revealed itself. Narrow, deep, sealed against time. Rowan reached inside, pulled something free. A metal cylinder. Sealed. Heavy. Mara stepped closer. "What is that?" she asked. Rowan turned it in his hands. "Something worth hiding," he said. He unscrewed the cap. Inside, documents, old, protected, preserved. He unfolded the first sheet. Land records, coordinates, names. His eyes moved quickly, then stopped. His breathing changed. Mara noticed. "What is it?" Rowan looked up slowly. "My grandfather," he said. Mara frowned slightly. "What about him?" Rowan held up the paper. "He didn't just live out here." He paused, as if the words themselves needed to catch up with the truth. "He owned it." Mara's eyes sharpened. "How much is it?" Rowan turned the page. Another map, another boundary line, extending, far beyond the cabin, far beyond what anyone in town would assume. Then another sheet. Geological markings, water flow patterns, underground reservoirs. Mara leaned closer. Her breath caught slightly. "That's not just land," she said. Rowan nodded once. "No," he replied. "It's not." Ash sat beside them, quiet, certain, as if none of this surprised him, as if he had known all along that something waited here. Rowan looked back toward the broken door, the boot prints, the empty desk. "They were looking for this," he said. Mara's voice dropped. "And they didn't find it." Rowan's eyes hardened. "No," he said. "They didn't." He sealed the cylinder again, held it tightly. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, but now it didn't sound empty. It sounded like something shifting, like a story that had been buried too long, beginning to surface. Rowan glanced at Ash. The dog met his gaze, steady, unmoving. Rowan nodded once. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I see it now." The forest no longer felt empty. It watched. Not in the way people imagine. No movement in the shadows, no eyes between the trees. Just a quiet awareness, like the land itself had begun to notice Rowan Hale's presence. And now, others had too. Victor Kane returned 2 days later. He didn't knock this time. The sound of his vehicle cut through the morning air long before it reached the cabin, tires grinding over gravel with deliberate force, as if announcing something heavier than arrival. Rowan stood outside when he came, arms crossed, still, waiting. Ash was already at his side. The dog didn't bark, didn't move. But his stance had changed. Subtle tension coiled beneath calm muscle, like a spring drawn just short of release. Victor stepped out of his vehicle, coat pristine despite the dust. His posture remained composed, but there was something different now. Less charm, more intention. "You've been busy," Victor said, his voice carrying easily across the clearing. Rowan didn't respond. Victor's eyes drifted, not to Rowan first, but to the cabin, then to the door, then, briefly, to the cabinet inside. He couldn't see it from here, but he knew exactly where it stood. That alone said enough. Victor stepped closer. "I underestimated you," he said. "That doesn't happen often." Rowan's voice came low. "You here to correct that?" Victor smiled. "Something like that." He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out an envelope, thicker than before. 10,000, he said simply. The number landed heavier this time, not because of its size, because of what it meant. Victor wasn't guessing anymore. He was investing. Rowan didn't reach for it. "Still not for sale." Victor tilted his head slightly, studying him. "You didn't even ask what I want with it." "I don't care." Victor's smile didn't fade, but it thinned. "You should," he said quietly. "Because the moment you understand its value," he paused, "you'll realize you're standing on something people don't just walk away from. Ash shifted. One step forward. Not aggressive, just present. Victor's eyes flicked down briefly, then back up. I'm trying to make this easy, he said. Rowan stepped closer now, just enough. So am I. Silence. The wind moved through the trees again. Victor held Rowan's gaze for a long moment, then slowly slid the envelope back into his coat. All right, he said. His tone changed. No longer persuasive, measured. Then we do this properly. Rowan didn't like the way that sounded. Victor turned toward his vehicle. But next time, he added without looking back, it won't be a conversation. The engine roared to life, and then he was gone. The cabin felt smaller that afternoon. Not physically, but in the way walls begin to feel closer when something unseen starts pressing inward. Rowan stood by the table, the metal cylinder open in front of him. Documents spread carefully, maps, coordinates, records of ownership stretching back decades. And one name repeated again and again, his grandfather. Mara leaned against the wall, arms folded. You understand what this is, right? She asked quietly. Rowan didn't look up. Yeah. You're not just sitting on land, she continued. You're sitting on something people build industries around. Rowan's jaw tightened. I figured that out. Mara studied him. You planning on fighting him? Rowan finally looked up. Wasn't planning on anything, he said. Then after a beat. But I'm not selling. Mara nodded once. That's going to make things complicated. Rowan almost smiled. It always is. The lawyer's office sat at the edge of town. Not modern, not polished. Just old brick, weathered windows, and a sign that had probably been painted by hand decades ago. Boone and associates inside, the air smelled faintly of paper and dust. Elijah Boone sat behind a heavy wooden desk. He didn't stand when Rowan entered, didn't offer his hand, just looked, and kept looking. He was in his early 70s, maybe older. Tall once, now slightly bent at the shoulders, as if years of carrying responsibility had reshaped him. His hair was silver, combed neatly back. His face lined deeply, not from age alone, but from long years of careful thinking. His eyes, though, sharp, clear, unforgiving. You're Hale's grandson, Boone said. Not a question. A statement waiting to be proven wrong. Rowan nodded once. Boone leaned back slightly. I've seen men walk in here claiming things that didn't belong to them, he said. Most of them had better stories than you. Rowan didn't react. I'm not here for a story, he said. Boone's gaze flicked briefly to Ash, who had settled silently beside Rowan's leg. The old man's expression shifted. Just a fraction. You brought the dog, he said. Rowan glanced down. He comes with me. Boone nodded slowly. Good. A pause. Then, sit. Rowan did. Mara remained near the door. Boone reached forward, adjusting a pair of glasses on the desk, though he didn't put them on. Let's make this simple, he said. You don't prove ownership with paper alone. Rowan leaned slightly forward. Then how? Boone met his eyes. You prove it by what you intend to do with it. Silence settled between them. Boone continued. Your grandfather didn't leave this behind for someone to sell it the first time things got difficult. Rowan's voice stayed even. I'm not selling. Boone held his gaze longer this time, measuring. Then he nodded, just once. We'll see. That night, the forest changed again. Not in sound, in rhythm. Ash was the first to feel it. He lifted his head slowly from the floor beside the cabinet. No barking, no movement. Just awake. His ears angled toward the back of the cabin, not the road, not the front door. Somewhere else. Rowan noticed immediately. His body went still. Ash stood, walked quietly toward the rear wall, paused. And then, he didn't growl, didn't warn. He simply stared at something beyond the wood, beyond the dark, as if someone was already standing there. Rowan moved, slow, controlled, every instinct sharpened. He reached the window, pulled the curtain back just enough to see. Nothing. Only trees, only shadows. But a shape, gone too quickly to define. Rowan stepped back. Ash didn't move. Still watching, still waiting. Rowan exhaled slowly. We're not alone anymore. The sound came later. Glass shattering. The front window exploded inward without warning. Mara dropped low instantly. Rowan turned. Ash moved faster. The dog surged forward, placing himself between the broken window and the room in a single fluid motion. A rock lay on the floor, wrapped, paper tied around it. Rowan approached carefully, picked it up, unwrapped it. A message, short, clean. Last offer. Rowan stared at it for a long moment, then folded the paper slowly, set it on the table. Ash returned to his side, calm, unshaken. Rowan rested a hand against the dog's neck. "You don't scare easy, do you?" he murmured. Ash didn't respond. He never did. But his presence said enough. Rowan looked toward the broken window, then back at the cabinet. The weight of everything pressed in at once. The land, the documents, Victor, the forest itself. All of it converging into one simple truth. There was no going back. Not anymore. The night stretched long. The cold seeped in through the broken glass. But Rowan didn't sleep. He sat in the dim light of the stove, Ash beside him, watching, waiting. The cabinet stood in the corner, silent, but no longer forgotten. Not by him, not by anyone. Night in the northern forest did not fall. It settled, slowly, like something ancient lowering itself over the land, pressing down until even the smallest sounds felt distant and fragile. Rowan Hale sat near the stove, one elbow resting on his knee, fingers loosely curled as the fire burned low. The cabin smelled faintly of smoke and cold air leaking through the broken window, patched only with a temporary board. Across the room, the map cabinet stood in silence. No longer just furniture. Something else now. Something watched. Ash lay beside it. But he wasn't sleeping. His breathing was too shallow, too controlled. Rowan noticed. He always noticed. "You feel it too?" Rowan murmured quietly. Ash didn't move. But one ear shifted, listening. Not to the wind, not to the trees. Something closer, something wrong. The forest had gone still. Not quiet, still. There was a difference. No distant birds, no shifting branches. Even the wind had pulled back, as if unwilling to touch whatever was about to happen. Rowan's body reacted before his mind did. His spine straightened slightly. His breathing slowed. Old instincts, buried, disciplined, unforgiving, began to rise. Ash stood. No sudden movement, no warning bark. He simply rose, muscles tightening, head angled toward the back of the cabin. Not the front. Not the broken window. The back wall. Rowan followed his gaze. "Yeah," he whispered. Then, a sound. Soft, metal against wood. Not loud enough for most people, but enough. Rowan stood, every movement controlled now, deliberate. He didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't need one. He had something else. Ash moved first. 3 steps. Stopped. Waiting. The sound came again, closer, a pry bar sliding between wood and frame. Testing. Careful. Patient. Whoever it was, they knew what they were doing. The back door shifted, just slightly. Then again. The wood creaked under pressure. Rowan's jaw tightened. "Stay," he whispered. Ash didn't. The dog didn't disobey. He adjusted, lowered his body, prepared, not for a command, for a moment. The door gave way, a sharp crack. Then, it burst inward. Cold air flooded the cabin, and with it, a man. He moved fast, too fast for hesitation, dressed in dark layers, practical, not expensive. Mid-30s, lean build, movements efficient and trained. His face was partially covered, but what showed was enough. Sharp features, unshaven jaw, eyes that didn't flicker under pressure. This wasn't a thief. This was a job. He didn't speak, didn't threaten. He went straight for the cabinet. Ash intercepted, a blur of muscle and instinct. The German shepherd slammed into the man's side, knocking his trajectory off just enough. The man reacted instantly, twisted, drove an elbow down, hard. Ash took the hit but didn't retreat. He repositioned. Faster. Rowan moved in. No hesitation, no warning. He grabbed the intruder's arm, twisting sharply, driving him off balance. The man fought back. Of course he did. A punch came fast, clean, catching Rowan across the jaw. The world snapped sideways, and for a moment, it wasn't the cabin anymore. Sand, heat, a road that stretched too long under a sky too bright, a voice shouting. Then, silence. Ash stopping, not moving, refusing. Rowan yelling, "Move!" And then, the ground disappeared. The explosion hit. Sound vanished. Then came back all at once. Smoke. Dust, blood, someone screaming, maybe him, maybe not. Ash dragging him, pulling, refusing to let go. Rowan staggered. Back in the cabin, but not fully, not yet. The intruder moved again, fast, reaching for something inside his jacket. Rowan's breathing broke, shallow, unsteady. The past clung to him like smoke. Ash saw it. The dog broke contact with the intruder, just for a second. He turned, moved to Rowan, pressed his head firmly against Rowan's hand. Grounding, solid, real. Not a command, not a trick, a memory, a connection, a line back to now. Rowan blinked, once, twice. The cabin returned, the cold, the fire, the man in front of him, Ash beside him, here, now, alive. Rowan exhaled sharply and moved. For a single heartbeat. Everything aligned. The present, the past, the dog, the man. Rowan realized something he hadn't allowed himself to believe in years. Ash hadn't just saved his life back then, he was still saving it. Right now. And maybe he always would. Rowan drove forward, controlled, precise. He caught the intruder mid-motion, slamming him into the wall with enough force to stop momentum without losing balance. The man struggled, hard, but not wild, trained. Rowan tightened his grip. "Wrong place," he said quietly. The intruder didn't answer. Instead, he shifted weight, broke free just enough, and ran, straight for the door. Ash lunged, teeth bared now, not to kill, to stop. He caught fabric, ripped it. The man stumbled, recovered, and disappeared into the forest. Gone. Just like that. Silence rushed back in, but it felt different now. Broken. Rowan stood still for a moment, then stepped back slowly. His breathing steadied, but his hands, they shook. Just slightly. Ash returned. No hesitation. He moved to Rowan's side and leaned into him, not demanding attention, just there. Rowan dropped to one knee. His hand rested against Ash's neck. "You're still here," he said quietly. Ash's tail moved once, soft but certain. Then Rowan saw it. Blood. Not his, Ash's. A shallow cut along the shoulder. Not deep, but enough. Rowan's expression changed instantly. Focused, sharp. "Easy," he murmured. He guided Ash toward the table, grabbing a cloth, water, whatever he could find. Ash didn't resist. Didn't flinch. He watched Rowan the entire time. Calm. Trusting. As if pain was irrelevant. As if the only thing that mattered was that Rowan was still standing. The cabin bore the marks of the struggle. The door broken. Wood splintered. Dust disturbed. The cabinet untouched. Rowan noticed that. Of course he did. He sat back slowly, Ash beside him. The weight of everything settled in. The land, the documents, Victor, the man who had just been here. And the realization, this wasn't about money anymore. This was pressure, force, a line being drawn. Rowan leaned back against the wall. His eyes drifted toward the cabinet, then to Ash, then to the broken door. For the first time, the thought came clearly. No hesitation, no resistance, just honest. "Maybe I should sell it," he said quietly. The words felt strange, like they didn't belong to him. "Take the money," he continued, voice low. "Leave before this gets worse." Ash didn't react immediately. He didn't growl, didn't move. He just looked at Rowan and held that look, longer than usual, deeper, as if waiting, not for a command, for a decision. Rowan exhaled slowly. His gaze dropped. "I'm tired," he admitted. Not to Ash, to himself. The fire crackled softly behind them. The forest outside remained still, but no longer empty, not anymore. Morning came without warmth. The light spilled across the forest in pale gold, touching the tops of the pines, but never quite reaching the ground where Rowan Hale stood. The broken cabin behind him carried the scars of the night, splintered wood, shattered glass, silence that no longer felt peaceful. Ash stepped out beside him. The German shepherd moved slower than usual, favoring his shoulder slightly, though he never complained. And his coat still held its strength, his posture still disciplined. But Rowan saw the difference. He always did. Rowan crouched, resting a hand gently against Ash's neck. "You should be resting," he murmured. Ash didn't sit, didn't turn away. He simply leaned into Rowan's hand. Just enough to acknowledge, not enough to retreat. The forest stretched out before them, wide, quiet, waiting. The truck came just after the sun cleared the ridge. Not Victor, not anyone Rowan expected. The engine was older, rougher, the kind of sound that belonged to someone who kept things running long after others would have given up. Ash heard it first. His head lifted, ears forward. No tension, no warning. Just recognition. Rowan turned. A faded blue pickup rolled slowly into the clearing, stopping a few yards from the cabin. The door opened with a metallic groan. The man who stepped out looked like he had been carved from the same land he stood on. Jonah Creed. Late 60s, maybe early 70s. Tall, though age had bent him slightly forward. His shoulders were still broad beneath a worn brown canvas jacket, patched in places where time had tried to take it apart. His beard was uneven, gray, thick in some areas, thinner in others, not maintained for appearance, but allowed to exist. His eyes, though, sharp and tired. The kind of tired that didn't come from sleep. It came from knowing too much for too long. He looked at Rowan, then at Ash, and something softened. "Didn't think I'd see that dog again," Jonah said quietly. Rowan straightened. "You knew my grandfather?" Jonah nodded once. "Knew him better than most," he replied. His gaze drifted past Rowan, to the cabin, to the broken door, to the marks left behind. "Looks like the world finally caught up," he added. Rowan didn't respond. He didn't need to. Jonah walked closer, slow, measured. He stopped a few feet away, studying Rowan now, not as a stranger, as something unfinished. "He wasn't sure you'd make it this far," Jonah said. Rowan's jaw tightened slightly. "Then why leave it to me?" Jonah's lips curved faintly, not quite a smile. "Because he hoped you would." Inside the cabin, the air felt heavier with Jonah's presence. Not threatening, not intrusive. Just honest. He didn't sit right away. He walked slowly around the room, taking in the cabinet, the damage, the scattered traces of conflict. Then he stopped, rested a hand briefly on the edge of the map cabinet. "He built this whole thing like a test," Jonah said. Rowan leaned against the wall. "A test for what?" Jonah turned slightly. "For patience," he said. "For loyalty. For knowing the difference between value and price." Ash shifted beside Rowan. Listening, Jonah glanced at the dog again. "That one helped," he added quietly. Rowan exhaled. "Yeah," he said. "He usually does." Jonah pulled something from his coat. A folded map, older than the others, edges worn soft. He laid it on the table. "There's one more place," he said. Rowan stepped forward. Mara, who had arrived earlier that morning and now stood near the window, leaned in slightly. Jonah pointed, a small marking near the northern edge of the land. "A lake," he said. Rowan frowned. "I've seen it." Jonah shook his head. "No," he said. "You've seen the surface." The walk to the lake took most of the afternoon. The forest opened slowly as they moved north, the trees thinning just enough to allow light to spill across the ground in long, quiet bands. The air carried a different scent here, colder, cleaner, touched by water that hadn't been disturbed in years. Ash led, not far ahead, but certain. His pace adjusted to the terrain, his injured shoulder never slowing him enough to break rhythm. Rowan noticed. He always noticed. "You don't have to prove anything," Rowan said quietly. Ash didn't turn, didn't stop. He just kept moving. The lake appeared without warning. One moment, trees. The next, open space. Still water stretched wide before them, reflecting the pale sky like glass. No wind touched it. No ripples disturbed the surface. It felt untouched, like something that had chosen to remain hidden. Jonah stepped beside Rowan. "This is where most people stopped," he said. Rowan looked at him. "Most?" Jonah nodded. "They came looking for money," he said. "Something easy." His gaze moved to the water. They didn't understand what they were being asked to become. Ash stopped. Not at the edge of the lake, but a few feet back. He turned slightly, then began to move sideways. Not forward, not toward the water. Along the shore. Slow, deliberate. His nose lowered, tracing something invisible. Rowan followed. Each step quieter now, more careful. Ash stopped again, One exact point. Nothing marked it. No stone, no sign. Just earth, still, silent. Ash sat and waited. Rowan knelt. His hands moved to the ground, brushing away the top layer of soil. Cold, hard, but not untouched. Someone had been here before. Not recently, but enough. Jonah watched without speaking. Rowan dug deeper. The earth gave way, slowly. Then, wood. A solid surface beneath the soil. Rowan cleared it further. A box, sealed, weathered but intact. Mara stepped closer. "Is that?" Rowan nodded once. "Yeah." They opened it carefully. No rush, no panic, just respect. Inside, documents. Not copies, not fragments. Originals, land deeds, ownership records, legal seals still intact. And beneath them, a second envelope. Rowan picked it up. His hands steadier now. He opened it slowly. The paper inside crackled faintly, old, but preserved. He read, silently, then again, and this time, his breath changed. Mara watched him. "What does it say?" Rowan didn't answer immediately. Then, "If you've come this far," he said quietly, "you no longer need what's inside this box." He paused, his eyes fixed on the page. "You've already become the kind of man who won't misuse it." Silence settled over the lake. Jonah nodded once. "That sounds like him." Rowan lowered the letter. His gaze drifted across the water. The land, the trees, everything connected, everything part of something larger than ownership. Mara stepped beside him. "Do you understand what this means?" she asked. Rowan nodded slowly. "If I sell," he said, "this place disappears." Mara didn't argue. She didn't need to. Jonah spoke instead. "He knew that," he said. "That's why he made sure only the right person could find it." Rowan exhaled. Long, heavy. Ash moved closer, sat beside him. Not pushing, not urging, just there. The same way he had been on the road, in the dust, in the smoke. In every moment Rowan had almost lost himself. Rowan looked down at him, then back at the land. And for the first time, he understood the full weight of what had been left behind. Not money, not power, responsibility. 1 year later, the forest still stood the same. Tall pines, cold air, light falling through branches like something sacred and quiet. But everything else had changed. The land no longer felt abandoned. It breathed. Not loudly, not in a way that demanded attention, but in small, steady rhythms that only those who stayed long enough could understand. Where there had once been silence, there were now voices, low ones, careful ones. People relearning how to exist in a world that no longer felt like a battlefield. Rowan Hale stood near the edge of the clearing, hands resting loosely in the pockets of his worn olive field jacket. Time hadn't softened his posture. His shoulders were still broad, his stance still balanced. His presence still carried that quiet weight of someone who had seen too much and chosen to carry it anyway. But something inside him had changed. Not erased, not forgotten, just repositioned. Ash moved beside him, slower now. The German shepherd's once sharp, explosive movements had softened into something steadier, more deliberate. Age had begun to touch him, not heavily, not cruelly, but enough that Rowan noticed the slight delay in his steps, the way his shoulder no longer carried the same effortless strength. Still, his eyes hadn't changed. Deep, focused, watching everything, understanding more than most. Rowan glanced down. "You're taking your time these days," he murmured. Ash didn't respond. He never did. He simply walked forward. The building stood where the old land had once been, left to decay. Not a resort, not a mansion, nothing that tried to impress, a simple structure of wood and stone, built to last rather than to shine. Large windows faced the forest, letting in light that softened the edges of everything inside. A wide porch wrapped around the front, where a few chairs sat quietly, often occupied by men and women who needed somewhere to sit without being asked questions. A sign hung near the entrance, not polished, not new, but clear. North Ridge Recovery Center. Rowan watched as one of the doors opened. A young man stepped out. Early 20s, lean, almost too thin, as if life had taken more from him than it had given back. His hair was short, unevenly cut, dark with a hint of sun fading at the edges. His hands moved slightly as he walked, not dramatically, but enough to reveal the tension still living inside him. His name was Caleb Vance, former infantry, recently discharged, still learning how to be something other than what the war had made him. He paused near the edge of the porch, looked out at the trees, then down. Ash approached him, not quickly, not with purpose that could be mistaken for command, just present. Caleb stiffened slightly at first. Rowan noticed that too, always noticing. Ash stopped a few feet away, sat, waited. No sound, no pressure, just a quiet offering. Caleb hesitated. Then, slowly, he stepped closer. His hand lifted, paused midair, as if unsure what would happen if he crossed that distance. Ash didn't move, didn't flinch. He simply stayed. Caleb's hand finally rested against the dog's fur. Light, careful. Ash's tail moved once. Not excitement, acknowledgement. Caleb exhaled. And for the first time since Rowan had seen him arrive, his shoulders dropped. Just slightly, but enough. Rowan leaned back against the wooden railing, watching, not interfering. Mara Bellamy stood a few steps away, arms folded loosely, her gaze steady as she observed the interaction. "You don't train them for that," she said quietly. Rowan shook his head. "No," he replied. "You don't." Mara glanced at him. "Then how does he know?" Rowan's eyes stayed on Ash. "He remembers," he said. Inside the building, voices carried softly through the halls. Not loud, not forced. Conversations between people who didn't need to explain every silence. Jonah Creed sat near the far end of the room, a cup of coffee resting between his hands. He hadn't changed much over the year. Still worn, still quiet, still carrying the same weight of understanding that didn't need to be spoken aloud. But there was something different in the way he watched the others now. Less guarded. More at peace. He caught Rowan's eye as he stepped inside, gave a small nod. Rowan returned it. Nothing more needed. Ash suddenly turned, not sharply, not alarmed, but with intention. His gaze moved past Caleb, past Rowan, toward the corner of the room, where the old cabinet stood. The same one, unchanged. Scratches still etched into its surface, edges still worn smooth by time. Ash walked to it slowly, sat beside it, and rested his head gently against the wood, just like he had on the first day. Rowan felt something shift in his chest, not pain, not memory, something quieter, something that didn't need fixing. For a moment, it felt like nothing had changed at all. Caleb followed the movement, his brow furrowed slightly. "What is that?" he asked. Rowan walked over, rested a hand lightly against the cabinet. "Just something old," he said. Caleb studied it. "Doesn't look like much." Rowan almost smiled. "Yeah," he said. "That's what everyone thought." Caleb crouched slightly, running his fingers across the wood. Ash didn't move, didn't react. He simply stayed beside it, guarding, not the object, something else, something harder to name. Later that afternoon, the forest filled with movement. Not chaos, not noise, just life. A group of veterans walked along the trail just beyond the clearing, each accompanied by a trained dog. Some moved slowly, others with more confidence, but all of them moved forward. That was enough. Rowan stood at the edge of the path, watching, not as a soldier, not as someone waiting for something to go wrong, but as someone who understood what it meant to stand still long enough for others to find their footing. Mara joined him. "Do you ever think about leaving?" she asked. Rowan considered the question, then shook his head. "No," he said. Mara nodded. "Good," she replied. "Because this place—" She gestured toward the trees, the building, the people. "It matters." Rowan looked at Ash, still beside the cabinet, still watching. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It does." The sun began to lower behind the ridge, casting long shadows across the clearing. The air cooled. The forest settled again, but not into silence, into something steadier, something alive. Caleb sat on the porch now, Ash beside him. His hand rested more comfortably against the dog's fur, his breathing slower, his movements less sharp. Rowan watched from a distance and understood something he hadn't been able to put into words before. The cabinet had never been the treasure. The land hadn't been either. Not really. The money, it had only been a tool. Ash lifted his head slightly, met Rowan's gaze, and in that quiet moment, everything aligned. The past, the pain, the choices, the path forward. Not forced, not demanded, chosen. Rowan exhaled slowly, and for the first time, there was no weight behind it, only space. That night the forest held its quiet once more. The stars stretched wide above the ridge, untouched by anything below. Inside the cabin, no longer broken, no longer temporary, the cabinet stood where it always had. Ash lay beside it, older now, slower, but still present, still watching, still waiting, not for danger, for meaning. Rowan stepped inside, paused, looked at the dog, then at the cabinet, then at the life that had grown quietly around both. And he understood. Not all at once, not loudly, but clearly enough. Some things are never meant to be found. They're meant to be followed. In that quiet forest, beneath the pale northern light, people still told the story. Not about the man who found $200 million, but about a dog who refused to walk away from an old, forgotten cabinet. And because of that, never walked away from the man who needed him most. There are moments in life when everything seems broken, when the path disappears, and when the weight we carry feels too heavy to bear. But sometimes, the miracle doesn't come as a sudden change or a fortune from nowhere. Sometimes, it comes quietly, in the form of loyalty, patience, and a presence that refuses to leave your side. Maybe God doesn't always speak in loud ways. Maybe he works through the small things we overlook. A second chance, a path we didn't notice, or even a companion who stays when the world walks away. Just like in this story, what seemed ordinary became the very thing that led a man back to purpose, to healing, and to the life he was meant to live. In your own life, there may be something you've been overlooking, something small, something quiet, something you almost gave up on. But what if that is exactly where your miracle is waiting? If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it with someone who might need it today. Leave a comment and tell me where you are watching from and what part of this story stayed with you the most. And if you believe that even the smallest things can carry the greatest meaning, consider subscribing to the channel to be part of more stories like this. May God watch over you, guide your steps, and bring peace into your life, no matter where you are right now.